believe it's July 21st, but it is. It's July 21st in the year of 2020, and what a year it has been. It is also, just a little side note I'll share with you, it is day 2 of the 10-day green smoothie cleanse. I started it on Sunday. No, I'm sorry. I started it yesterday and invited some people to join me, really anybody who wanted to. And so there's a pretty good group of folk who are doing this 10-day green smoothie cleanse. So if any of you are listening, keep up the great work. I know it's day 2, but I feel great. It really just kind of takes some of the guesswork, if you will, out of what you should have every day, right? And it gets you kind of a reset. So I'm excited about it. And I'm glad to have some people joining me as well. There are many folk who've talked about this pandemic weight gain they've had, kind of like that freshman year weight gain or whatever you do that, you know, causes you to pack on a few pounds. And so this is, it's a cleanse. It's not necessarily a diet, but there is weight loss is associated with it. But it's really about clarity and kind of resetting your body. We should really detox and cleanse our bodies quarterly because even if you eat pretty well, you know, some of the just stuff from the environment, any of the processed foods that we eat. Anyway, I won't do a whole show about that because I'm not a nutritionist, but I do care about living as healthy and clean as I can. So thank you to those of you who signed on to join the Green Smoothie Cleanse with me. And if you're interested, if you have not signed on and you're interested, just inbox me or send me an email, kim@kimydavis.com, and I'll send you the details and you can jump in whenever you're ready. So I just wanted to say that day 2, and congratulations to those who decided to join me. Good morning, Charles Drayton. It's always good to see you in the room. There's so much to get to. And let me say this. So on last week's show, we had Dr. Ulysses Burley III, who is amazing. He was with us back in April. And back in April, when he was on the show, he said then that he thought we should shut down. We should stay shut down until August. So we'd be ready for the fall school year. And, you know, so I had him last weekend. I'm like, wow, yeah, it would have been great, right, if we had just remained shut down to August, because now look how things are crazy. And so my point of bringing up that show is I'm going to post it on YouTube. Well, it is on YouTube because now my shows are live on Facebook and YouTube. But with some of the changes in the platform I use, I couldn't see any of the comments from Facebook because my connection was with YouTube first. So I switched it back so that I'm like, where are the people that normally show up? I didn't see you until after the show. So I was not ignoring you, but technology continues to change and I have to continue to change with it. So I learned something new every week. And I was like, why didn't I see, because it would have had me believe that no one was watching the show. And when I finished, I saw there were, you know, a few hundred people. So I have to make Facebook my first broadcast and YouTube my second for now, until we grow the YouTube audience and we can just go back and forth. So that's just a side note. All right. So listen, here's some of the things I want to talk about. It is July 21st. Yesterday, the Houston Texans rookies showed up. I believe they just showed up for testing. I'm not really sure because I haven't heard anything else from the Texans. Reached out to them yesterday and they're still figuring out their media protocols, which I understand, because there's still a lot of protocols the NFL has to figure out as it relates to just getting this show on the road. Okay. A couple of days ago, there was this, I want to say an onslaught, but there were a lot of players that were tweeting about, you know, the fact that they had questions that had not been answered in terms of protocols and safety as it relates to getting back to play. And the hashtag they all used was, we want to play, or I want to play. So it's they want to play, but they want some questions answered. Okay. I did Isaiah Carey's show here in Houston yesterday, The Insight on Fox 26. And that was really the segment that I was a part of. That was the point of it, talking about, you know, what's happening with the NFL. And I heard one of the Texans broadcasters on a radio show yesterday briefly say that, you know, players and media maybe, I'm summing it up, maybe being overly critical because the Texans he used the Texans, for instance, because they've apparently done a lot in terms of sanitizing the building, the ways that you get in and out of controlled areas. Before you use a key card, now it's facial recognition, so you're not touching as much. And while I can appreciate that level of sanitation and those sorts of things, that's important, right? That should happen. But that's not what the players are talking about, right? That should happen anyway. The extra sanitation, the extra steps and precautions that teams and stadiums should take to make sure, from a sanitation standpoint, their things are good. But I think there are real questions that still have yet to be answered by the National Football League in terms of what happens when a player tests positive. What happens? What's the process, right? Walk us through that. And I say us, I mean, I think those are some of the questions that players have. I mean, I've heard players say things like, how does it affect your contract? And if you test positive, who's responsible for the recovery? Like what happens? Because there is no bubble in the National Football League. There are far too many players and there are far too many people. Because remember, it's not just the players. It's the players, it's the coaches, it's the cleaning crew, it's the medical staff, it's the communications. It's an entire group of people that are involved in terms of making this thing go. And then, oh, by the way, they go home to their families. So what happens if you go home? On the show yesterday, I was on with Isaiah, a player joined us. He said, I want to know what happens because, I don't want to, contract this virus and then take it home to my family. And then what happens? And then, so if you test positive, is it a 14-day? I mean, what is it? Okay. So I think those are some fair questions. And so there's a lot of unanswered questions. And here's the thing, I'm going to let you hear a clip in a moment. And I just wonder, like, what have they been doing since, I don't know, March? They kind of got a chance to cheat. Okay, so is that better? Did you guys get the volume back? I just reset it. It looks like there should be some volume. So let me know if you guys can hear it now. I sure appreciate y'all being a part of the process. I look like I see the actual movements on the microphone on this end. So um, I'm going to keep going and somebody will tell me if you can hear. If you came back. Okay, we're good. Thank you guys. I don't know, maybe, hey, that's technology. It's kind of like live TV, which is why I feel really at home here. So thank you guys so much. So what John said was this happened to Whitworth with his family. He contracted it, and then he and his wife and kids and his father-in-law, and that's when it got really serious. So um, listen, and John speaks from experience. He shared with us here he has recovered or is continuing to recover, if you will, from the coronavirus because it is, if I'm not, I don't want to misquote John, but it takes a while to really get back to full strength. And he was, healthy and he was, he's a trainer. So fitness and being fit and eating well and all that is how he lives his life. And it hit him pretty hard. So I think I think these players have some real concerns. And let me see here. I'm going to share something with you that I can show on the screen. And then I'm going to bring it up here. All right.
In the government right now, we have situations going on where states want to reopen and states want to move ahead, or you got some other states that want to stay closed. They want to shut things down. They want to scale things back, like in California. But instead of demanding what specifically relates to the COVID-19 pandemic, all of a sudden you're hearing about other ancillary demands that are coming to the forefront because people are using it as an opportunity to get other things that they couldn't get before the pandemic, right? So what I'm saying is let's parlay that to football. Is it possible that the owners, or at least some of them, you come to the conclusion, of course, the times that we're living in, safety measures, safety protocols, or what have you, these things need to be addressed. But the people that you're negotiating with, because of the abrasive relationship, is suddenly bringing new demands to the forefront that we all might not be aware of that may be influencing the absence of an agreement. Is that possible? I don't know.
Yeah, I will be forthright, and my experience probably makes me somewhat biased. But I think that anyone who is reasonable could understand that who is speaking out is not DeMaurice Smith. It's the players who are speaking out. And you can reasonably look at this situation and come to the conclusion that the people who are driving the union are the players. The people who are driving the league are the owners. And it stands to reason that I think any person who is being honest could understand that the players have genuine concern about their health risks because the players are going to be exposed to the COVID-19 pandemic in a way that the owners will not be. And you can look at the owners and understand that they're isolated from this. They will not be experiencing this, and you can understand that it's likely that the thing that will impact them most is their bottom line. So they are more motivated by that. I would ask you, do you think that the owners would be doing the same thing, would be negotiating from the same position if they also had to expose themselves as much as the players had? I don't think.
All right, so that's Dominique Foxworthy, and I always appreciate his point of view. But so, yeah, there may be some negotiating going on, but I also think what Dominique said is really, really important to remember. The owners are not going to be exposed like the players are. They're not going to be lining up across the field, breathing in close contact. Someone asked about wearing face shields. What do you think about that? Well, last week I interviewed Justin Reed, safety from the Houston Texans. He was the availability was about him making Microsoft Surface notebooks available for medical students in the Houston area. And so afterwards, we obviously talked about football. And someone asked, well, what about wearing that shield. And he said it's difficult to breathe. It's difficult to breathe. So that means they're breathing. And that's one of the ways that this virus, if we talk about it, is transmitted, droplets. So you're breathing and you're sweating. There's a lot that has to be answered. And I think the players are right to raise those questions. And on Isaiah's show yesterday, he asked the question, said, "Do you think there'll be a delay?" And I said, absolutely. I mean, the Ricky's reported yesterday here in Houston and also in Kansas City. I think they got tested, and if they're positive, they can go back on Thursday. Like I said, I'm not really sure because, and I cut the team some slack on this in terms of information that they are giving out about what's happening. It's a moving target, so as they try to figure out the protocols for playing and getting the season underway, the media protocols are also something that they're having to try to figure out. So what I do know is that my access will be much different than in the past. It'll be limited because they will probably have networks, and probably the major papers will have representatives. I don't know. We'll see. I think I'll have some access virtually, but I'll let you know. And I will cover them as best as I can. But I do think there's a lot of real valid reasons for concerns. And I just don't think we know what's going to happen. I think that the season will have to be delayed, right? Because next week, actually a week from today, NFL veterans are supposed to report to the Houston Texans. Is that really possible? Can they report next week? Will they report without having some more answers? And can they figure out, they being the NFL Players Association and the league, and in a week, what they haven't been able to figure out in 4 months? I don't know. It's a lot of people's livelihood. I get that. We hope for the best, but this thing is big. And as we see the numbers, okay. Is that better? Is it back? So what happens when I do that, when I say, hang on, let me see, is it back? All right, I think it looks like it's back on my end. I see okay. Oh, it goes to both YouTube and Facebook. Okay, so let me know if the volume is back. Okay, so thank you guys for telling me that. What happens is I don't know what's happening around with the internet. I have the highest possible internet that you can have. But so I reload. So that's why I just say, hang on. So if I reload the platform, it may cut out for a second, but then it'll come back. So thank you guys for helping me produce this show today. Thank you for that. So I wanted to let you see some video from Orlando talking about Russell Westbrook being back, and also to hear from head coach Mike D'Antoni. So give me a second. Let me bring that up for you. That should be, all right. So this is.
A lot of work. What do you say to that?
We're going to make it work. Get in the bubble. Russell Westbrook going to go to Disney World finally. Rockets guard traveled to Orlando Monday to join up with his team. Westbrook announced a week ago his positive test for the coronavirus. Under league protocol, he had to test negative on consecutive days to get back to work. Still has to isolate for a couple of days at Disney, pass a couple more tests before his coach can have him back for practice.
I do expect that once he clears everything, that he'll be ready to go 5-on-5 and all that. I think we'll probably, I would say Friday might be a little early. That'll be up to the medical staff and Russell himself and see how he feels in the days before. But I expect, hopefully he'll get in a couple of scrimmages and then be ready for us to play.
Rockets, a little streaky this season before the league went on hold, but they are currently the 6th seed in the conference, 40-24, just 2.5 games out of the 3 seed. And remember, they went to the really short lineup the last couple of weeks. Harden, Westbrook have been scoring machines, averaging 61.9 combined points. That's on pace to pass Kobe and Shaq about 18 years ago for the highest scoring average by any duo. And at 12-1 to win it all, Houston has the 4th shortest odds to win the title, behind Bucks and 2 LA teams at 6-1. That's according to Caesars Sportsbook.
All right. So Russell Westbrook is in the bubble. He is there, and he will have to have a couple of negative tests a couple of days in a row. I think if it's 2 or 4 before he can practice with the team. So the first regular season game is a week from Monday, I believe. I believe it's the 31st. So it's the 31st, and the Texans. The Rockets will play the Dallas Mavericks. So, we're going to see how it goes. Yesterday, the NBA reported they had 0 positive tests. So that's a good thing. And if everybody does what they should, hopefully the bubble works. Yeah, the bubble works. So we will see. I mean, there's some who say, you know what, shut it all down. Like, it's just crazy. It's raging. And especially considering that they're in Florida, a place that has numbers that are surging like Texas, but I would have to say that their governor seems to be like a step below, a peg below the Texas governor. At least Governor Abbott is now saying you have to wear a face mask, but they're not. They're pretty much out of hospital beds, and it's a tough situation. So all we can do is keep hoping and praying for the best. And listen, wear your mask, okay? Make sure you wear your mask. Make sure that you are practicing social distancing. Those are the best tools we have. Oh yeah, and yes, here's the other thing. Stay at home, right? Use this time to get some stuff done. Do the 10-day green smoothie cleanse with me and my crew. I'll probably do it again after the first round. Get your house in order, write a book, work on something. I don't know, but take this time and stay home as much as you can. It's not forever if we can flatten this curve, because they're working feverishly on a vaccine, right? And so it's going to take a while before we get to that point. But, we just have to be as diligent and do as much as we can to help flatten this curve. So one of the stories I mentioned to you guys, that I promo that I said I would talk about today is, so we talked about we talked about the NFL and the NBA, and Major League Baseball is having scrimmages this week, and they get underway later this week. The Houston Astros have their season opener. Can you believe it? On July 24th. And I've decided that I'm going to watch that game on TV, and because the access to interviews and players is going to be virtual, even if I'm in the stadium. So I have not gone down to Minute Maid Park yet. I'm just not comfortable at this point. And I can get the same access from baseball in terms of what I need being there as I get it virtually. So I'll be able to interview Dusty and players virtually on Zoom. And I'm going to do that at least until things here in Texas and Houston get a little bit better. Okay. I'm not, I am getting out of the house, but I'm being really careful. As you guys know, you hear me talk about my family a lot. I love my family. My mom's 89. My siblings are a little bit older. And so I'm really cautious about the people I'm around and the spaces I'm in. And believe me, if I'm in a space, I have vetted it. I know the person, I know what's around, I know the sanitation stuff. So you've got to really, really be possible. Here's one of my fellow Green Smoothie Cleanse crew members. Hey, what's up, Alvin Wright? Thank you for tuning in. How was day one for you? I tell you, when I got up this morning, luckily I had already made my smoothies because yesterday I made the wrong smoothie first. So I was a day ahead. So I was able to just drink it and I wasn't hungry at all. So I got up, started doing stuff and said, oh, wait, let me go take some of this smoothie. So I had that. Now I'm drinking some tea and also drinking lots of water. And let me say this. I'm a water snob, if you will. Like, I really like water. I don't want to say I'm a water snob, but I really enjoy water. This is one of my new favorites. It's called 1186. This is Artesian Water. It comes from Alabama, but it is a Black-owned company that I'm gonna say makes the water because the water comes from the ground. But this is a Black-owned company, and I actually met with them before the pandemic about maybe helping them on some marketing stuff and then having them be a part of Chalk Talk. So I will revisit that, but I just wanted to share that this is really good water and it's really clean. It's, like I can taste water. Like I really enjoy that. So I just wanted to say a little something for the people at 1186 in Houston. You can get it. I buy it at HEB and not all HEBs, but it is available at some HEBs. Emma says, what a blessing to mom. Yes, to have mom. We love her. Yes, we do. So I know that many people don't still have their mom. So I don't take that for granted. And I love her in all her glory. Alvin says, don't miss the solid food at all. I'm a salad guy, so the transition so far is seamless. Awesome. And here's the thing about this green smoothie cleanse. I was talking to somebody yesterday about it. I'm going to just say this real quick. I'm going to talk about the SWAT. It's a cleanse. It's a detox. And so while there's some weight loss associated with it, it's also about cleansing your liver and your spleen and places that we don't, things we don't necessarily detox because, we're bombarding our bodies. We're asking our bodies to do a lot, right? So the detox or the cleanse is really designed to help give your body a break and to clean out some of the organs that we need to have to function properly. And that's why this cleanse is so important. And the way this cleanse is designed, it's in order. The smoothies are designed with ingredients on purpose. The days that you drink the smoothies in a certain order, just so that you can have the kind of success that you need, right? So that it works. All right. So back to sports, right? The SWAC, the Southwestern Athletic Conference, has announced yesterday that they are not having fall sports. Okay. They've said they've moved the football season to spring. The league announced it late Monday. And so that's a really big deal. All right. They said, listen, whatever happens, this is our plan forward. And it's monumental news for a number of reasons. One is it's definitive. And so now Charles McClellan, who used to be the athletic director at Texas Southern, prior to that, the athletic director at Prairie View. And I've been trying to get Charles on the show. I will continue to do that. But he said they wanted to be able to plan so that their players and their school, their member institutions know what to do and expect. And so, they just wanted to think about it in terms of what do we know right now? Let's go ahead and make a plan and not keep trying to say, will we, and let's plan for having the football season in the spring. All right. So here's the deal. The big Power 5 conferences, are saying, no, we're still going to play. They're still trying to figure it out. They've been having really large numbers of positive tests. I was told last week by a coach friend of mine that Texas A&M had like more than 40 positive tests that they didn't want to talk about it. The LSU had that many tests at least or more. And so how do you get it under control? How do you navigate it? I understand, when we're talking college football and the Power 5 conferences, we're talking the SEC, right? We're talking big, big money. It's big business. And so, the question came up, like, what happens to these football players who might be trying to go in the draft? How do they play in the spring? Well, they probably wouldn't play. The NFL is more than likely, I'd be willing to say, not going to change anything about the draft. They're going to hold their draft when they hold it. That's what I say right now today. We don't know what will ultimately happen, but so will the SEC, will the other conferences do something different? Another person I'm working to get on the show is the athletic director from Vanderbilt. So she's a woman, and she's the first woman and first African American to be an athletic director in the SEC. So we've connected, and hopefully over the next week or two, I can get her on the show. I'm really looking forward to talking with her. So, yeah, you're right, Alvin. He says, how does that play into high school sports for this fall? I think we don't know yet, Alvin. I think that we're waiting to see. I think what's the UIL going to do? I mean, this is a thing. There's so much uncertainty surrounding sports as it relates to this pandemic, the coronavirus. I think we just don't know yet about moving forward. I mean, think about it. Schools are trying to figure out about just having school. So playing fall football is got to be not at the top of the list, because you got to at least have school. If you're not having school, how do you have football? So, I mean, they'll have some kind of school, but, depending on where you are, who you're governed by, what the state is. We've seen there's a state, was it a school district in Kentucky, I believe, and don't quote me on that, but I believe there was one in Kentucky. The mayor came out and said, we're not going to have in school, our kids are not going to go back to school to January into the building. I mean, they're going to have online learning, and they're working to do things to mitigate the challenges that some kids have in terms of access and Wi-Fi and all those things you need to be able to operate in the digital space. But there's so much uncertainty. So Alvin says, Madden football sounds like a good idea now. It's in the game. Yeah, EA Sports, it's in the game. Yeah, I mean, think about it. I mean, granted that the Michael Jordan, the documentary, The Last Dance, that show, the Bulls documentary, really mostly about Michael Jordan back in June, it would probably get good numbers. It would not have gotten the kind of numbers it did receive if people were just looking for content, right? They were looking for some sports. They wanted something, and that was different. Now, then the networks, ESPN had to start pulling things out of the vault, showing us old previous championship games, right? Series, because they lack content. So, I'd like to be able to help them with some content. But seriously, there's so much that's continuing to kind of change and evolve, and we're just waiting to see what it is. So yes, you might be right about the EA Sports. Hey, Gregory, welcome. I see you. Thank you for being part sports journalism. Yeah, thank you. I appreciate that. Thank you for being a part of Chalk Talk today. So what do you guys think? Will the Southwestern Athletic Conference be the leader in what happens with fall sports? What I believe is that the conferences like the Big Ten and the Big 12 is trying to go ahead, and I say Big Ten, the Big 12 is trying to go ahead and get their schedule intact and move forward. I think if they can play, they all will, because it's such big business. I mean, let's be real about it. It's such big business, but who knows what's going to happen? I mean, the way the numbers these cases of coronavirus are surging around the country, the way the access to hospital beds is becoming more challenging because more people are being hospitalized. You've got to think about it. Yes, if somebody gets coronavirus, maybe they don't have severe symptoms and have to be hospitalized. But what if they do? And so I think we're in a wait and see mode. So the fact that the SWAC came out yesterday and said, we're moving football to the spring, we will see. And the Magic City Classic is skipping this year. That was going to be a game that's played in Birmingham. So I think one of the questions that I've heard people ask, and I mentioned it earlier, is what happens to these football players who want to be drafted? Will they play spring football? I don't know. I guess it depends on how solid are you? Like, is your draft status, is your position going to the next level? Is it already secured by what you've done in your previous years? Then maybe you wouldn't play in the spring. And the SWAC is a conference that does produce NFL talent, so we don't know. But the other conferences like the SEC and the Big 12 and the Pac-10 and pick a conference, we still have a lot to, I guess, learn about what will happen. So stay tuned, right? We say stay tuned. And that's really what we're doing in the sports space. Every week, we're kind of staying tuned. With the National Football League, we're staying tuned because we still don't really know what is going to happen. All right. We don't know what's going to happen. So listen, we talked a lot about the coronavirus on this show because it is what's happening, and we will continue to talk about it. I will continue to encourage you to practice the right kind of safety for you and your family so that we can flatten the curve, that you can be safe and healthy and well. But the other pandemic that's important for us not to stop talking about is the racial pandemic. It's the social justice movement of 2020. I don't know what you call it, but it's a racial pandemic, and it's a racial pandemic that now other people realize exists. And so I think it's important that we keep those conversations alive as well. There's still people in these streets, y'all, protesting. Like, there's still people in the streets. We've seen what's happening in Portland, where the people are marching, and the president, the current administration, has sent in like federal police and in this camouflage gear, and they're taking people with no names, no badges, and they're taking people off the streets and unmarked cars. These are really scary times. And now he's talking about maybe making doing that same thing in Chicago and Philadelphia. I heard him mention Detroit. Listen, military officials, former colonels and captains and people who know that space are appalled. They say this is like the worst thing to do, right? It's the worst thing to do. And Gregory mentioned something, absolutely. Thank you for that, Gregory. John Lewis, good trouble. We will, you can't say enough about John Lewis, right? What would he be saying about what's happening in Portland? John Lewis, of course, John Lewis and Reverend C.T. Vivian, we lost them both last week, I guess on the same day or within a day of each other. And it's a huge loss. Both fighters for civil rights, human rights. And we know John Lewis because he's been out front for years. We know about his story crossing that bridge in Alabama, being beaten, and more than once being arrested, tens of times, fighting for justice for everybody. And he talked about getting in good trouble. And so if you have not seen the documentary that Erica Alexander directed, it's called Good Trouble. It is on, I'm sorry, I just got a weird note from YouTube. They're like, you're live on YouTube, really? Because we've been live now for 38 minutes. Anyway, it's called Good Trouble, and it's about John Lewis's life. If you haven't seen it, it's definitely worth seeing. And so here's the thing, as we talk about John Lewis and people were speaking out last week and giving him, saying great things about him, how we should honor his life and what a difference he made and how he fought for so many people and fought for what's right. So for those of you who are saying my candidate's not running, I shouldn't vote, if you want to honor John Lewis, you have to vote, right? We've got to vote, and we've got to continue to stay in the fight, and we got to make some good trouble. And so thank you, Gregory, for saying that. It was a tremendous loss for his family, of course, but for all of us. And we have got to keep moving forward and keep trying to do the right things. Freddie says, good morning. What do you think about that with bringing federal police to the major cities? Is that more of Trump just exercising the power he has? Absolutely. Um, Listen, we've heard these commanders and people who run the military say, "Look, this is not what those troops are. They're not even trained for this, right? They're not trained for this kind of peaceful protest and unrest. They're not trained for it. Um, Federal police is not what they should be. It's not what should be happening. There's no badges, there's no names. People don't know where they're going. You're getting in unmarked cars. So listen, it is it's scary times, but it's definitely times to pay attention. And until there's a change in the administration, unless the current administration has a shift in heart, which I don't know. I don't know if it gets worse as we get closer to November. We get closer to the possibility that he will not. Maybe he won't be the president next time around. I don't know. It's scary, and so we just have to all really be careful. It's not a time to shrink, of course, but we've got to press as much as we can our local officials. We got to put pressure. Like I live in Texas. I reach out to John Cornyn and the Ted Cruz. Cornyn does give me his office sends me these canned responses. I get nothing from Cruz. They're not my choice, but they are my representatives in the Senate. And so I think we have to just put pressure on people and let them hear from us. John Cornyn is up for re-election, and he's probably feeling pretty confident right now in Texas. He did not want to run against Royce West, the state senator out of Dallas, because there was a runoff in the primary between, and Royce West was one of them. John Cornyn ran attack ads against Royce West. So what I'm saying is nothing is out of reach. I think we need to let these people who we are paying to represent us say, listen, something's got to give now. There's also conversation about a new round of relief funding as relates to the coronavirus. But here's what the administration doesn't want included. Testing, contact testing, contact testing, contact tracing rather. They don't want more tests. They want that taken out. Well, wait a minute. We're in a pandemic, and so we need that, the medical relief, the testing, and this coronavirus thing is real. He didn't want the test because the more you test, he says, the more people are positive. Well, if people aren't positive, they wouldn't test positive. All you have to do is look at the number of hospital beds that are being taken up by the coronavirus. And let me say this to people who have not been personally hit by it or don't know anybody who has been hit by it yet. Even if you don't get the coronavirus, it impacts your access and ability to get the kind of healthcare you need, because so much of the resources are going to coronavirus. So I'm just saying, we need to all be in this fight together. I don't care what your party affiliation is. We really do need to be in this fight together. And as it relates to this racial pandemic, we cannot let the conversations die with those canned PR phrases about Black Lives Matter, right? Everybody needs to find what their space is and where they can have an impact. I have reached out to Roger Goodell. I have not heard back from him. I will reach out to him again. In a very respectful way. I've reached out to Cal McNair, the Houston Texans. I did not hear back from Cal McNair. I will reach out again because, it's easy to say, oh yeah, Black Lives Matter and maybe we'll kneel. But when I look at your organizations and they don't look any different, then Black lives don't really matter, okay? If Black lives really matter, then you're doing business differently. Because what we know, and I've been saying this, when the pandemic hit, companies were able to change what they do, how they operate their business on a dime, work remotely, do something different with their supply chains. I mean, there's some small businesses who've been hit hard. I'm not saying that. I'm talking about these big companies. They were able to do things differently in less than a week. But it's been 50 years and you still can't figure out how to have to be more inclusive and provide equity for Black people, then you don't really mean it. And we got to call them out on that. All right. We've got to call them out on that. Alvin says, I may have missed this. What is the NFL going to do about the season? And might they consider what the MSL are doing? So, yeah, I talked a little bit about that, Alvin. The NFL, what are they going to do? I think they're still trying to figure it out. I mean, right now, they're moving forward. The Texans rookies reported on yesterday. I don't know what. I believe that they took their test, and if they're positive, 2 days in a row, that they'll come back tomorrow. I've not heard anything back from the Texans. The media protocols are still being figured out, but also I just think the protocols in general are being figured out about what's going to happen. And so that's a really good question. And, the players, as you know, over the weekend were tweeting a lot about it and saying, hey, hashtag we want to play, or I want to play, whichever they use. But what's going on? And so there's still a lot of questions about what happens if I get a positive test. Does that affect my contract status? Does that, who's responsible for, my medical care and coverage during that process? What about my family? There's so much. How long am I out? And then am I out for 14 days? And then does everybody? I mean, what? Those are just some of the questions, but there are many. And so I think we're just gonna have to stay tuned and see. Alvin got jokes. He says, tag football, flag. Listen, I don't know. But there's reason for concern. And I think there's reason for doubt. Like I told Isaiah on his show last night, he said, do you think that there will be a delay in the season? And I said, yes, I do. I'm not saying I think the season will be canceled, but how can there not be a delay when training camp is set to start a week from today? If you are the Houston Texans, on July 28th is when teams are supposed to report for training camp. And there's all this uncertainty. I just think we don't know enough about it yet. So we'll stay tuned. And if you will, continue to follow me here and on my social media platforms. I will keep you posted, give you updates. I've been attending virtually the bubble interviews. It's just kind of difficult getting stuff from Florida in terms of what they'll let you use. So I try not to go rogue, but I guess I'm going to have to in terms of some of the things I use. And Freddie says, do you think they'll play at least one preseason game? Can't see them going straight. I don't know. I don't. I think the preseason is going to be, I think the NFL owners would like there to be some preseason. I think the players would not. And so I believe there was something yesterday that they talked about canceling preseason. I got an email. Let me just check while we're talking. But yeah, I think there's, of course, let me see. I thought I got something yesterday. Well, no, it has not official, but the NFL makes an offer to cancel all of the preseason games. That was one of the things they made an offer to on yesterday, but that, I don't know that is definitely happened. And so as recently as about an hour ago, there's another report that the NFL has said they will offer to have no preseason games. That was one of the things the players wanted. I don't think there's going to be a preseason. And I think it is the season's in question. I mean, we shall see, right? We will have to see. Gregory says we have vital parts to play. We all hold these representatives for their services claimed, but still unseen. It's easy to see those who are actively on the front lines versus those hiding in the comfort of their offices. Gregory, you're absolutely right. We see people who are actually out doing work. And there's some people like we just haven't seen. Like, has anybody seen Bernie Sanders? And I'm not trying to throw shade, but you wanted to be president. Where are you now? Like, I don't even know what he's doing. Anyway, I don't want to get the Bernie bros, like, don't at me. I'm just curious. But yeah, we've got to hold people responsible, hold them accountable, and ask them, reach out to them, call them, email them. I like email because then there's a record of it someplace, somewhere. But I call also. I never talk to them, obviously, but it's not because I don't try. And Alvin says, you go rogue? Nah, I know, right? That seems so unlike me for anybody who knows me. Yeah. Um, Sometimes you got to do what you got to do. It's just so that I can bring you, the audience, you, the people, information. And so I will do that as best as I can. All right, everybody, we are out of time for today's show. Thank you for the interaction. I always love it. And thank you guys for helping me produce this show when we had some audio problems, for letting me know, because listen, I hear me just fine. So thanks for letting me know when you could not hear me, so I could reboot and start things and restart it so that we could indeed, so that you could indeed hear me. All right. I appreciate you being a part of the show. And listen, as always, let me hear from you. If there's somebody you'd like for me to, try to get on the show, if there's a topic you'd like for me to talk about, email me, kim@kimydavis.com, kim@kimydavis.com, and let me know. All right. Let me hear from you. Let me know. I love your feedback. I love your input. As I mentioned, there's a couple of shows that we're working on. I'm working on the athletic director from Vanderbilt, the first African-American woman to be an athletic director in the SEC. She's agreed to be on the show. We just have to figure out her schedule because she's obviously a little busy. So I'm excited about that. And I'm also working on trying to get Charles McClellan, the commissioner of the SWAC, on, as they've made their announcement, made their decision on Monday that there will be no fall sports in the SWAC. They're going to push football to the spring. So a lot of moving parts and a lot happening. Join the 10-day green smoothie cleanse. Alvin's a part of the group. We're having fun. Our organs are going to be healthy and love us. Make your organs love you too. If you want information about it, just email me, kim@kimydavis.com. And wait, there we go. Yeah. I'm managing 2 platforms, so it's kind of cool. All right. So kim@kimydavis.com. Let me hear from you, and we will get you the information so that you can join us. All right. Make it a great week, everybody. I'll see you next Tuesday right here on, I almost said Beyond the Headlines. Wow. Next week I'm on Chalk Talk. Have a great week and be safe.